I'm possessed by a demon, and I won't let it escape. I know what you're thinking. Who in their right mind would ever admit to having a demon inside of them and not wanting them to escape? Well, I guess that would be me. After all, what is a right mind? For me, it's one that finds harmony in its surroundings, eternal bliss. When I was younger, I was, to say the least, not popular. I was a mere shadow, lost in a sea of many. I would look around at all my classmates and wonder, how did they make it seem so easy belonging? I couldn't talk to other kids, and if words ever did escape my mouth, they would be muttered, condensed down to pure gibberish, only for the kids to laugh whenever I tried talking to them. All that changed the day my mother got me invited to Trevor's birthday party. He was a bit popular, and almost the entire class was going to his party. His family was rich and owned the biggest house in the outskirts of town. My mother worked for his family, and she pleaded and begged for me to be invited. I was a bit apprehensive. I could just imagine all the kids' faces when they saw me there, befuddled with the thought of why Trevor would ever invite a kid like me. But to my delight, people just treated me in the same way they did at school, as if I were invisible. I wandered around the mansion looking at all the different artifacts that Trevor's family had on display. Statues wearing medieval armor, and paintings of men with long beards whose eyes seemed just to follow every step you took as you passed by it. Eventually I found myself in the basement. Nothing too exciting was down there. Just mainly boxes of papers neatly organized and stacked one on top of the other. I was about to head back upstairs and join my fellow classmates, but that's when I saw it. The wooden tablet. It was jammed in between the mountain of boxes. The old unpolished wood glistened somehow in the dimly lit basement, it drawing me to it as if I were some bug attracted to a blue light. I glided across the room effortlessly and reached my small arm to pull the board out. It slid towards me with a screech as if it was happy someone was finally giving it any attention. As I held the gloomy board in my arms, I looked down, and to my surprise, it was a Ouija board. "Wow," I remember saying with such adulation. While holding the board, my fingers felt the planchette attached to it underneath. I placed the board down onto the floor, and with very little control over my own limbs, I placed the planchette down on the mysterious wood and told it, "Hi." I waited for several seconds, and nothing happened. No movement, no energy, just emptiness laid still in the dark basement. I got a bit frustrated, realizing not even spirits wanted to be my friend. I was about to get up and put the board back where I found it until I felt the planchette begin to move. My small hand cautiously being guided. "H," I read out loud. I smiled. It told me hi. I was elated, and if my eyes weren't glued down staring at the board, I would have jumped from joy. I quickly asked it another question, not ready for this entity to leave me. "Will you be my friend forever?" I eagerly asked it. The planchette slowly glided towards the corner of the board and hovered over the word that made my heart melt. Yes. Suddenly, a burst of energy inundated my body as if I were being electrocuted. I fell to the floor, my body convulsing. As my head trembled, all I could do is stare up at that dark ceiling that seemed to be vast and endless. That's when a shadowy figure emerged from the emptiness. It slowly floated down towards me, my shaking body trapped underneath its gaze, and all I could do is wait as it came closer. and then let out a ghastly roar. Forever. As the entity entered my body, I felt a shockwave of euphoric pleasure engulf my senses, and all I could do is smile from ear to ear. Then everything abruptly halted. No more trembling. No more visions of an endless sea of darkness. In fact, the basement was now more illuminated. I stood to my feet slowly, confused but enchanted. I looked down at my body and I felt alive, as if I was breathing oxygen for the first time. And I inhaled deeply, savoring the seconds of life. I felt energetic and strong, unstoppable. But more importantly, I felt happy. I returned upstairs a lot more confident, as if I had matured and no longer desired the belonging from my fellow peers that I once felt as if I needed. The kids looked at me different. They saw me different, almost as if they were scared of me or perhaps intimidated. I crossed paths with Trevor and nodded. Something extraordinary happened. His response was him picking up his hand for a high five. After that, everyone started talking to me, except for Brian. He always liked to pick on me. I was smaller than him, and seeing me happy was something he was not comfortable with. He approached and stood over me, expressing a disgusted gaze, his breath showering me in its stench. "Why are you here?" the angry boy asked me. I didn't respond. I remained quiet and unmoved. I could feel a tingling sensation pricking at the back of my mind, and with no control, my arm raised on its own and punched the angry kid dead in the face. Smack! He fell to the floor, blood oozing out of his nose. Everyone there just stared at me in astonishment. My mother was called, as one might guess, but from that day on, old Brian didn't pick on me anymore. And Trevor, well, he became my best friend. Actually, my second best friend, because I owe all this to it, my main BFF. As I grew older, I only grew more in confidence and power. As college came around, I acted on my impulses and didn't bother with the morality of consequences. If I felt like doing something, I did it. If I felt compelled, I acted. I didn't need permission or rationality. Nietzsche said it best: morality is for the weak and subpar. But for people like us, me and my friend, we do what we want, when we want. As time progressed, my relationship with the entity only grew stronger. I had everything I could ever want. I was a genius, a master of the universe, until one day, things began to change. I noticed my energy began to weaken, my ethics somehow dazed in an ocean of questionable morality. I felt it. The entity wanted to leave. Perhaps it grew bored of me. Or perhaps it was just upset because I was no longer young. I could feel its disgust when I look in the mirror. My wrinkles and gray hair bothered it. It doesn't want me anymore. I spent my entire life with it guiding me. It making me a rich man, a powerful man. And now it wants out, but I won't let it. I sought fortune tellers and mediums, me looking for answers how to not let it escape, till finally I found the ritual. Surprisingly enough, I had to perform a seance in the original place that I first encountered my friend. Luckily for me, I lived in that same mansion. I bought it from Trevor's family after I executed a hostile takeover of their family business. I sold its assets piece by piece. I even heard Trevor put a bullet in his head after the whole ordeal. What a weak man. I went down to the basement, It was dark and absent of sound. I lit several candles and sat on the floor. I groaned from pain, my knees practically giving out on me. I chanted words that I didn't even understand, coughing and wheezing. I grabbed a hammer and coddled it in my hand. I then pulled out that very same board that enchanted me when I was a kid. Somehow it still glistened and shined in the dimly lit room. I placed it in front of me on the floor. I could feel the vastness of space hover above me as it once did. I could feel my old friend. He knew what was coming and wanted to escape. I could feel him clawing and stretching up my throat, it wanting to leave. But I continued chanting. And with much effort, I raised my arm as high as I could, it doing its best to stop me, but bang! I shattered the old unpolished wooden board, it breaking into several pieces. I could feel my old friend agonizing in sorrow, it crying, wanting to be let out. But this ritual ties us together for an eternity, even in the afterlife. Like I told it when I was a kid, we will be friends forever.